These are a bowl full of flowers from the ones that are starting to fade away from my bouquet. And so I always like to do this when they get to the point where I have to kind of clean up my bouquet and take out the ones that are on their way of dropping petals, or just, you know, they're just dying. So I take them out and I use them to create a nature mandala. I try and do this anytime I have cut flowers, because it just adds to like that final piece of enjoyment and honoring the flowers before I have to let them fully go. And sometimes I've tried to do some pressing and I just haven't had that much luck with it. But if you like to press flowers, that would be a great time to do that too, or give that a try, is at the end of the flower cycle. So we're gonna do a little flower mandala together with the nature supplies here that I've gathered. And you can do this, I like to do this when I'm out in nature, if you're on a nature hike. Kids really love this. So you're getting some sticks and stones and finding leaves and putting them together and creating a nature mandala is really fun. You can even take this idea more in the drawing aspect. You can use what you make with the actual nature materials and then take that as inspiration into your sketchbook or a painting or a drawing that you're doing. Or you can go, if you're close to a beach, oh, I wish I was right now. If you're close to a beach, you can go to a beach and use some sticks and just draw out the shapes of a mandala in the sand. And that's a lovely way of doing a nature mandala as well. So I'll talk a little bit more about that and what mandala means and just a little bit about it as we are creating that today. Yeah, so I've got my flowers, and then I'm gonna share with you just a very simple line drawing that I did this week that also really helped to ground me. And then I thought we would do a simple line drawing together, because that's just a really nice process. I love to draw. It's one of the first things that brought me to art when I was a kid. And I always find that coming back to just pencil and paper and being quiet and doing some drawing is really rejuvenating for me. So I wanted to share a little bit of just some simple drawing ideas for you. All right, let's turn down and let's do some creating with these flowers. So I put on my table here an old canvas. It actually has a little rip in the corner, and I did that because I wanted to create this mandala with you, but then I wanted to be able to like take it off my table and put it down somewhere else so that I might use it as inspiration for the drawing. I don't know yet, but I decided that might be a nice way to be able to move this after we create our mandala. So we're gonna take some divine care of ourselves by working on some nice meditative art. I am gonna do a little Om voice chant, I think, before I get started here. So just gonna head, if you wanna join me, just close your eyes. You can even just take some deep breaths with me if you don't wanna make the sound, but I actually haven't made the sound in quite a little while, and I just feel called to do that today. So close my eyes. I'm gonna take a nice deep inhale, and on my exhale, I'm gonna just repeat the word Om in a nice long drawn out, as much as feels comfortable. I'm not trying to push it. I'm just trying to do it in a nice, comfortable way. And I think I'm gonna do that 3 times. And then you can join me in the sound, or you can just listen, or you can just breathe deeply, whatever feels good for you. So get yourself in a comfortable position. I like to have my feet on the floor if I'm sitting in a chair. Take a nice deep inhale in. I'll just take one more breath and come back to here. I felt good and felt a little shaky actually in my last one, which was interesting. So maybe I need to do a little more of that today. Just sort of ground my voice. And speaking of, have not been communicating very well. So that could be why I felt a little shaky and why I felt like I really needed to do that, that little chant this today, is to activate my throat chakra and open up my lines of communication. So, all right, here is my bowl of flowers. And I'm just going to, I feel like this beautiful piece, this is a sunflower. I took off the leaves that were really curled up and just left the center, but I do feel like this would be a very nice center to my mandala. Let's see if I can add a little more light before it. Let's see if that's any better. There we go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about mandala. So a mandala is a Sanskrit word for circle, and they really became like a part of the human consciousness, a portal to it. And they've been used at art therapy. They're considered both therapeutic and symbolic. It is said to ground you. As you just play with the shapes and the colors. And they reflect sort of your inner self of the person that is creating it. I'm just gonna start with these since I have a bunch of them. And a mandala is a spiritual and ritual symbol of Hinduism and Buddhism. It represents the universe. The circular design symbolizes the idea of life. It's never ending and all interconnected. And it can be very much a calming, spiritual practice to create one, whether you create it with nature pieces, you can do it with found art, you can do it in painting, in drawing. Traditionally, sand is used, like all different colors of sand. And I think it's a nice spatial activity. So when I put this in here, you see I don't have enough leaves to go all the way around. So now I'm just going to create an open space in the center so that I kind of do every other space. And then I could put something different in between. Maybe I'll use these because they're kind of long. And there's something about it because it's generally, unless you were to press it and somehow figure out a way of saving it, it's usually a fleeting piece of art. You know, it's art in the moment and then it's gone. You could take a picture of it to hold on to the memory of it, but usually the art is short-lived. Let's see. I have so many petals in this one that are waiting to be used here. Let's see. And you can take them each apart, or you can use the flowers as a whole, kind of depending on how much you've got. To work with. And I find this to be like meditation in action, because you really have to slow down. It does kind of push my patience sometimes, because I can't place these petals too quickly. Maybe I'll pull these in a little closer. Make them feel a little more connected. I feel like there's a little perfectly imperfect thing that goes on when you create these, because that's what nature is, right? It's perfectly imperfect. And I only have one of these, so I think I'm just gonna kind of chuck it in here and make it like a little bouquet in the center. And this, I don't know what to do with this one, but I wanted to share this one with you. I thought this was such a neat, I have no idea what this is, but I thought this was such a neat plant in my bouquet. See how the leaves kind of go and extend around the stem, and then these two come up. I thought that was so interesting. So if anyone knows what this is, let me know. These are really cute too. And they just had a really fun, like flopsy nature. Flopsy mopsy nature. I mean, there's no color, but it's just such a pretty shape. And you know how much I love green. Fun fact, when I got married, my all the groomsmen, I did like just a eucalyptus leaf and some greenery. There were no flowers on the groomsmen, and one of the groomsmen was like, "Oh my gosh, the florist, they forgot the flowers." And I was like, nope, they're supposed to be that way. I just wanted them to be real simple and just be greenery without having a flower on there. All right, I'm done. And isn't that pretty? What do you guys think? Would you do something like this? Have you ever done something like this? I feel like it's been such a fun way for me to really enjoy the flowers as a bouquet, and then enjoy them kind of in a very personal, individual level when they're starting to wilt and I have to remove them from the bouquet. I can sit down and create one of these. I usually just do it on my kitchen table because a lot of times that's where the bouquet is. So I will just create a little space, do it on the kitchen table, snap a picture, and then wipe them all off, and you know, then they get to say goodbye. So this could make a beautiful photo series. It's a lot of fun to do the meditation practice during making of the art. And then you can also use this as a great inspiration for an art piece. So either to draw it or to paint it, or a combination. So next up, I'm just going to lift this up and move it away so I can take a look at it if we want to draw it. So I'm gonna have a pencil. I have one of these Micron pens, which is an archival ink, a waterproof pen, some watercolor, or you can use colored pencils, and some little brushes. Just focusing, and this is the biggest one I've got. Most of them are pretty small, because when I do this kind of line art, I tend to like to bring it in real tiny. Sometimes I like to just use a pen too. I don't know if this one's waterproof, so it might smudge a little bit, but depending if I want to go on top of the watercolor or underneath it. If you want to go underneath the watercolor and draw the lines first, a pen like this is better because it's waterproof and it's not going to smudge when you go on top of it. But if you want to go on top of the watercolor after it's dried, I might sometimes pick up just something simple like this, which is a gel pen, and that'll glide real nice. I find with these, I can use it on top of watercolor, but depending on your paints, like this is a little bit of a inexpensive paint palette and it's a little bit chalkier in nature. So when it dries, these sometimes struggle writing on top of it. Although I did make it work. I did totally make it work. You'll see I did have some areas here on the sun where I had a little trouble. I had to go over it a couple of times. But that's the fun thing about your sketchbook, is that's totally fine. You know, like you're playing in the moment, and it's, if you get a little bump in the road there, it's just in your sketchbook. It's just for you to work some things out, either mentally or technique-wise. It's not a, but if you are doing a page, like on an actual watercolor page, just be aware that this kind of pen on top of this kind of watercolor can be a tough combination. If you're using a more expensive watercolor that doesn't get real thick like this one does, you have more luck, I'm sure. So when I did this one, I just created this little circle sun in the center, and then I danced around drawing some leaves all around it. But today, I think I'm going to use the mandala that we made as a bit of an inspiration for the line art. So we still have a center. We had that really pretty sunflower in the center. But I'll say this is my sunflower center. And then I had 5 leaves. Those big green leaves we put in. 1, 2, I didn't really start my mandala in the center of my page, so that's okay. So next I've got those lily-shaped peach flowers that are somewhat like that. And here I can just move this guy over if I want a little bit. The eraser is your friend. No harm in making changes as you go. All right, so now on both sides of the lily, I have those sprigs that I put in kind of early on. And they do curve a little. So I'm gonna let them do their thing and just put them in the middle here, have them curve in different directions. And they can be different heights. That'll really help if you want to make a nature mandala drawing that feels a little more natural and organic, not as geometric, by alternating the sizes slightly. It'll feel a little bit more natural that way. Okay, so next I have those little yellow swoopy ones. Like that go around our lily. I'm making them a little smaller than they are in real life, just because I want to make sure I have enough space on my page. So next I have those petals that go along the outside here. I'm just going to start in the middle and then do 3 or 4 on the sides. Maybe I'll do 3. I might have to squeeze this one down a little. Okay. Next, I'm gonna go and just add in those little sunflower edges. And lastly, on my mandala, with those little green puffs that I added on top of the lily at the end. So I'll just make a little circle for those. Next up, I'm going to use my micron, and this is a size 8. So it's kind of a middle way size, I guess. A medium, because they have smaller and larger ones. And I do sometimes veer off of my original sketch a little bit when I come in with the marker, and that's okay. One thing I have a hard time getting used to, I don't know if it's just this particular shape, but I feel like you have to hold them a little more up and down. When I try and hold it like to the side, I end up with a broken line. So just a tip that I've found that I have to train myself to hold this up a little more up and down when I'm drawing. grab one of my little eraser. This is a little gummy eraser. All right, so now I'm gonna add in some watercolor, and then I may come back and do, well, actually these have kind of a nice little line in the center of them. So let's add those. Add those. And then inside the sunflower, you can, if you want to, add some of the circles for the little seeds. I'm going to start with the largest and then go down to the more delicate and smallest pieces. So I'm just dipping my brush into the water, and you can do this as little or as much water as you want. If you add more water, you're gonna get a little more of a thinner application. And if you add less water with these, you end up with a pretty thick application. And then sometimes you can even just add some water right to your leaf or whatever it is you're drawing, and then pick up and dot it in there and let it be a little more organic how it gets filled in. So when I use less water, then it tends to be more controlled and colors in a little bit more like maybe a gouache paint. When I use more water, then I can let it kind of loosely fill in. And then I think I'm even gonna pick up a little bit of a different color green. Which one? Maybe the next one in my palette. Kind of touch that in there too. And now you have a little bit of a two-tone look going on for your leaves. And the next, I really like the color, so I'm just gonna stay kind of true to the colors I had here. It's like a peachy, peachy lily. So I'm gonna start with a really, really lighter peach, and then maybe I'll add a little darker. It's kind of fun to do the contrast and the juxtaposition of being very kind of close and, what's the word I'm looking for? When you're doing line art, you're kind of concentrating and being more in control of it, I guess, and then adding the watercolor on top. Now you're really letting loose and letting go of some of the control. So it's a nice balance. So even though I drew these little dots here for this branch, I'm not worrying about it too much if I get it right in there. Like, I'm not worrying about if I'm coloring in the lines. So if you can see, they're just sort of, it's okay to let it be not totally colored in because it's a different medium. If you're using something like a colored pencil, maybe you'd feel more inclined to color it in. All right, I'm gonna stop there. What's nice about this too is it's kind of just the simple shapes are down, and I'm gonna let it dry, and I can come back later and add some more details if you wanted to. If you want to add some lines into your leaves or create any patterns here, or even add just some more stuff around, or create a background, which I tend to like to do sometimes. Like, I might take a light blue and just sort of fill in. You don't even have to go everywhere. You can just fill in some little spots with the blue and create a background, or not, or leave it nice and crisp and white. Totally up to you. So when you do blue, I can then take it and like kind of go all around the outside if I wanted to, creating a bit of a wash. Oh, but be careful you don't pick up, or do pick up and let it be. If you pick up a little of that one, maybe I'll pick up a little of this one. The larger your brush is, the less control you'll have because you're kind of plopping down more water. And sometimes you want a bigger brush for that reason. And then if you have a smaller brush, you'll have a little more control because you have less water on it and you'll be able to get into more tiny areas. And sometimes my page can get pretty wet. That's why I like a watercolor or a mixed media sketchbook to work in the best, because some of these pages can get pretty wet when you're working in watercolor. They will get a little crinkly. This one dried pretty flat, actually. Let me see if I can turn this without making a mess. Yeah, this one dried pretty flat last night, so it was crinkly, but then it dried pretty flat. If you're working on paper that's just watercolor paper and it's loose, you'll find that a lot of people tape it down, and they do that and they keep the tape on until it's completely dry, so that if the paper gets all bubbly and bumpy while they're creating, which it will when you're doing watercolor, the tape keeps it in place, and then as it dries, it'll level out, and when it's all dry, then you can remove the tape. So usually they'll tape the paper down to their table or whatever it is they're working on. All right, bye.